All right, everybody. Welcome. I'm your host, Josh Wilson. So, Archie Miller just wrapped up his first weekly press conference or radio show, I should say, with Don Fisher at the, I believe it's the Holiday Inn right there in Bloomington. So, a lot of good news, a lot of good notes that came from Coach Miller. They got a chit chat with some Evan, with Evan Fitzner and all that good stuff. So I'm going to turn the audio on for my podcast in the Inside Out podcast over there on Hoosiers United. So let me get the soundbite rolling here, and we will get started. All right. All right, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Inside Out podcast presented by the good folks over at Hoosiers United. So, coming to tonight, Archie Miller just wrapped up his first weekly radio show with Don Fisher and crew over at the Holiday Inn there in Bloomington. A couple of the topics were the secret scrimmage against Loyola, maybe some things he did like and didn't like, and just kind of how things have progressed over the summer and kind of what he expects from his basketball team this year. So we'll kind of go over some of the big points that he discussed, some things that caught my attention, and kind of leave it at that. I mean, it was just a secret scrimmage, so not a lot of detail. I mean, there's a lot of hearsay out there on the the social media and all that good stuff, all the interwebs. So first things first, he did mention that Loyola only scored 48 points against the Hoosiers. He was really, really impressed with their defense as a whole. He was very, you could tell he was very excited about that. I think that's encouraging to play against a Final Four caliber team and to be able to, hold them to 48 points now. It's a scrimmage. It's kind of the first repetition of the year for those guys to go against somebody else. So I'll take a little bit of stock in it. I'm sure, he did mention that their length, their athleticism, Indiana's he's speaking of, really played a part in some of the shooting woes that Loyola came across. So I think, that has to be encouraging. Indiana's got some Archie guys now. So I think it's going to be, a big factor for the Hoosiers this season. That athleticism is going to play a big role in some big games, I think. He did note that there were some injuries. Devontae Green did not play from a nagging injury. Neither did Race Thompson. And I did see somewhere scrolling through Twitter, take it for what it's worth, that Jerome Hunter did not play either. I did not catch that during the radio show that Coach Miller had spoke of that. But I do know from what he said that Devontae Green nor Race Thompson played. So you have to think that Rob Finney got the start. I've seen some reports where he played really, really good defense on one of Loyola's best ball handlers, best backcourt players. I think that's really encouraging. I do think Finney has a big year. I think he's going to surprise some people, and I think this is just kind of the the opening to that. So obviously we don't have a lot of knowledge of what happened, but I do think that we'll see Rob Finney. And I think if Devontae Green is going to be out, does Rob Finney start the season next Tuesday against Chicago State? Not sure what to expect from the exhibition from Finney, if he'll start or if Al Durham plays the point. But Archie Miller's a point guard at heart. He played point guard in college at NC State. So I think he's got a soft spot for Finney and guys like that, the true point guards. So I think we may see him open up the season at the starting point guard spot, which, we'll see how he handles it. I think that'll be good for him down the road as well. So we'll see how he handles it in the immediate future. But I think that's huge news because, we're not really sure of what to expect for or from Devontae Green. Finney can be kind of a solid, point guard for the Indiana Hoosiers. So Race Thompson, not sure what's going on there. I was hoping he'd get to play a little bit. I think he's going to be a big factor for the Hoosiers, so I hope he gets back on the court soon. And he didn't speak too much about Jerome Hunter in regards to the injury front, so we'll see from that standpoint. But he did mention Deron Davis was cleared for full contact, full participation, I should say. He has been playing 5-on-5. So That's great news. Achilles injury, that's a tough injury. I mean, I had a pretty bad knee injury in high school, and I went on to play college, and that does have its lingering effects. But an Achilles is kind of, I mean, that's a whole different breed. I mean, a lot of people don't come back from that very well or at all. I mean, look at Kobe. Kobe was on the back end of his career, but he still struggled a little bit. So I think it's good. I think that's encouraging that De'Ron is back on the floor playing. Coach Miller did state that he only played about 10 minutes, about 2-minute burst. So I think that's probably what you're going to see a lot through December, probably early conference. Coach Miller stated the same, that he's probably not going to play long time lengths in one span. You'll probably see short burst, maybe try to get him in in between TV timeouts, let him go for 2 minutes and get him out for a rest. But De'Ron Davis is going to add a lot of value to the Hoosiers. That big body down low that can get you a basket or get to the foul line. He's a lone wolf, I guess you could say, of what Indiana doesn't have. He's a true big man, and he's going to present a lot of problems for opponents, especially with the guys, Fitzner, Langford, the guys that can shoot the ball out deep. You can put those guys around him, and I think he can kind of give them that special element. So, but from all accounts, Archie Miller was very pleased with Indiana's defense and with the way they played defensively. He did note that they had 11 steals in the scrimmage. I think that is a good number, and it represents kind of how he wants to play this year. 11 steals in a scrimmage against a Final Four team. And now, don't forget, Loyola played in the Final Four just this last season. So, I mean, and they brought some good guys back, and it's not like they're, bottom feeder of the Missouri Valley Conference that they play in. I mean, they're going to be a tough team, whether or not they get back to the tournament, this year, anything happens. But with the defense of that caliber, and like I mentioned before, the length, the athleticism that Coach Miller talked about, he was very, very pleased with how the Hoosiers played on the defensive end. He said offensively of that end, they're not quite there yet. And I think it's okay to expect that. It's probably a little bit easier to gel on the defensive end than it is the offensive end. You got to learn guys' tendencies. You have to learn where they like the ball, where they like to get the ball in regards to shooting motion if you're trying to get to Fitzner. So that takes time. Defensive is a cohesive unit. That takes time as well, but it's easier to work as a unit, to probably to learn quicker on the defensive end than it would trying to kind of collaborate with 10 different guys throughout the summer on the offensive end. So no surprise that's going to take time, but it does help that you got a couple guys that can just go get buckets for you. Jawan, Romeo, you can kick it out to Fitzner. So I expect that to come around, and it sounds like Coach Miller does as well. I really, really think that they're going to be a strong offensive team, but they're going to get carried by their defense, and hopefully that can win them some games in March. So all in all, a great, radio show, great way to kick off the season. The Hoosiers do play in their exhibition game this Thursday at 7 p.m. They host the University of Southern Indiana. You can catch that game on BTN Plus. You can subscribe to BTN Plus on the Big Ten Network website. It does have an app. It's $9.95, I believe, for a 1-month subscription to a specific school like Indiana, or you can pay like $15 to get the entire subscription for the entire conference for the month. So that's what I'll do. I want to watch the game. Don't want to miss out there. So make sure you get that. And then a week from tomorrow, they open up at home against Chicago State. So I'm really going to be intrigued to see if Fennessy starts at the point. I think he's going to be able to do some great things with Devontae Green on the shelf. Who knows how long Coach Miller did not, he wasn't very specific with that between him and Race Thompson, how long they're going to be out. Just noted that, they're going to have some injuries that are nagging. So not sure what to expect, but I'm excited to get the season kicked off, and really, I'm looking forward. I'm going to be at the game against Chicago State, so I'm really looking forward to it. But other than that, that was pretty much the wrap for Coach Miller and his session. Don Fisher did bring on Evan Fitzner. He was the player guest for this evening. So a couple, tidbits about him. He's never seen snow, so he's obviously pretty excited to see that. He didn't know that he came to Indiana just because of the basketball, just the way the state is, the way the school is, the fan base, just how crazy Indiana University is about basketball. And he did note that Coach Miller does want to play up tempo. He wants to play fast pace, and he did talk about his aspirations to go to the pros, wherever that may be after his time at IU. But he seems very excited, and he's going to add an element to Indiana that they did not have last year when it comes to outside shooting. So as a Hoosier fan, you have to be very, very elated about that, because the kid can just flat out shoot the basketball. There is no doubt about that. And another tidbit, he also did state that he is getting, I believe it's a public health degree and a master's program. He does have a business undergrad from St. Mary's. So great kid. I think he's going to do a lot for the Hoosiers on the court. And I think that's something to be very, very excited about. Like I said, I cannot wait to see the product that Coach Miller and staff put on the floor. Even this Thursday, it's going to be an exhibition, but you're going to get to see them against somebody other than themselves. And then it gets started for real next Tuesday. That's when the games count. So on that note, that's going to be it for me. Just wanted to get on here real quick and kind of update some things I took away from Coach Miller's weekly radio show with Don Fisher. As you can get those every Monday night on at 7 p.m. You can listen and watch live on their Indiana Men's Basketball Facebook page, and also you can listen to it on the IU Radio Network. As for me, Josh Wilson on the Inside Out podcast, I thank you all for joining me, and stay tuned over with us at Hoosiers United as we continue to bring Indiana sports content throughout the rest of the year and as basketball season gets started here. So thank you all. Have a great night, and go Hoosiers.